Bendix Ball is in full effect. Guys, I have an announcement to make. I'm a believer in Bendix Ball. I think the Marlins are about to be a juggernaut very, very soon. We're going to dig into that. I know that's fresh news to many listeners, but there's tons to get into and a guest to help me dig into this one. This is a Friday Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked on Marlins, your daily Marlins pod. I am your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up, of course, at Miami Marlins _UK. Happy Friday, guys. Firstly, happy Friday. We've made it. We have made it again. Another weekend on deck. It is also a bank holiday weekend here in the UK, which means Monday, no work for anyone, pretty much. So a long weekend here in the UK. What does that mean? More wine. Guys, thanks for making Locked on Marlins your first listen of the day. This, of course, is your team every day and is part of the Locked on Podcast Network. There is also a YouTube channel. Hit subscribe over on the YouTube channel. Join me in the comments as well. Let me know your vibes. This episode, we're going to talk about a couple of old friends, but primarily we're talking about some new friends. Peter Bendix friends and how things are trending with this organization at this point. It's finally dawned on me. It's finally sunk. I'm finally I've gone all in recently. I don't know what's happened, but something has changed for me very recently. So I want to dig into that. Delighted to welcome onto the show, though, first time guest, stud Twitter handle, stud Twitter follower. Make sure you're following Reese along the way. But Reese Dark in the house. Reese, how are we doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic right now.
Good man. And you go in the game as well. I mean, this is a Friday episode. There's a Max Meyer start on deck. You're headed to the ballpark in, pretty much straight after this episode. So what are you hoping to see from Max Meyer as well tonight?
Excited. I just want to see him battle. Hopefully we got some improvements on pitches and not wasting those.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, reminder, this episode is sponsored by our good friends over at SupplyHouse. And SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop your next plumbing, h-vac, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. All right, Reese, tell me, when Bendix was brought in, let's just start there. When Bendix was brought in, give me your level of excitement back then. How much, were you straight away a believer at that point of Bendix, the approach the Marlins were taking, moving away from Kim Ang, the approach that it had been where the Marlins were in the mix last year. They were buyers. The farm was not looking good, it's fair to say. They've made some organizational changes. Bendix in. Have you always been a believer?
Yeah, when he first got here, I was like a 7 or 8. Like, I'm not going to lie, I wanted to rebuild before the 2023 season. Like, I've gone back and looked at it. It's like, we suck. We need something new. And then, once that whole process started, I was like, this is what we need. Like, a nice reset. Like, the experiment failed. Move on from it.
From the Jeter vibes, you mean?
Memories. Yeah. Whatever was going on with that.
Yeah, it's fair to say there was a couple of false dawns, I guess, from that situation. But 7 or 8 when Bendix arrived, considering he's had a few months now, 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it might be, a deadline. We've seen tons of activity. Where are you on the Bendix scale now? It was a 7 or 8. Where are you now?
Strong 9. It's a strong 9. You do got to see the results in the major leagues. But I really like what I see now. It's so different just watching, especially like the minor league side. Like there's things happening that weren't happening before. It's pretty interesting.
Yep.
It's just stuff to see develop.
How closely are you following the minors as well at this point? Obviously, like the Marlins, you're going to the game this evening. That's the main focus. But like percentage-wise, like how much of your time is dedicated to following kind of like minor league stuff as well? And how much has that changed from, let's say, previous years, I guess?
Yeah, normally those games, like I have the Marlins game on one tab, and then I'll have all the minor league games going on the other one. I'll just swap through. So I'm mainly just watching the prospects, unless it's some of the majors I want to watch.
Which team, like what's your go-to affiliate at the moment? Like if you had to pick one, if they're all playing the same time, which is the affiliate you've got on the TV at one moment?
It's Pensacola. Pensy all the way. It's super fun to watch.
Fancy season. Oh, I love it. Love it. To be fair, like there's some fun. I mean, post deadline, I think Jacksonville's definitely got interesting. But I mean, I feel like the AA level is, it's always the place to go to primarily, I guess, right? So I guess that doesn't surprise me. Who's been like from Pensacola's season this year? Who's kind of really stood out to you, like kind of pre-deadline and kind of also like post-deadline too? I mean, there's like an obvious name post-deadline, but pre-deadline as well for Pensacola. Like, who's been the standout for you this year?
Pre-deadline for hitters, definitely Joe Mack. Just actually seeing him attack pitches. He's still swinging and missing, but he's able to control these counts more, and he's just sending them out. If he's not playing in Pensacola, he's playing in like a hitter-friendly park. He'll probably have 25, maybe 30 home runs by now.
Yeah. Joe Mack specifically, do you see him potentially being on the Marlins roster generally next year? Like, could you see a possibility where Joe Mack, I think he might be Rule 5 eligible as well from memory. I'm not 100% certain of that as I've said that out loud, but with Joe Mack, like if he has to be on the 40-man, let's assume, could it be possible that Joe Mack is on the Marlins roster at some point in 25?
I think it's definitely possible. I think he has one more year before he's eligible, which is a high school pick, if I can remember off the dome correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see him getting up there, especially if like Nicky goes down or Ramirez is struggling. I could definitely see that coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I mean, for me, like that's, he's a pre-Bendix guy, right? I mean, Joe Mack, it was like a, relatively, it was a high draft pick clearly with Joe Mack. And it felt like his career had kind of, stalled a little bit. Like there wasn't much conversation around Joe Mack, like at all. It had kind of just felt like it was just a flame out. And then what we've seen this year has been, I don't watch a ton of minor league baseball clearly, but like the highlights, his name has been one of the main highlights of 24. So like what do you think's kind of changed for Joe Mack this year as well?
I'm not entirely sure. I know there's like some swing things that are different. I remember very vividly in spring training, he came up, had a couple at bats. He looked really uncomfortable and overmatched, and everyone was just like, all right, that's it. I'm done. Like, done with this guy. And then once the real game started for him, just tearing it up.
Yeah, no doubt. What about post-deadline as well? Like, there's obviously been a couple of guys added, like, offensively, one primary standout one potentially. But, what have you made of Pensacola post-deadline? And, how's that kind of shaped, I guess, differently since the deadline for those guys?
Yeah, they're crushing it now. There's guys in the lineup and guys struggling before. Like, Martirella's been fantastic over the last 6 weeks. Marcy's starting to get there as well. And then you got Cernas killing it. Jacob Barry Bonds is doing really well. He did it. He reached the 100 WRC plus mark from last night's
Let's
game.
go.
We're there.
Was I too quick to kind of write off Jacob Barrels? Like, I mean, are we fully back on the Jacob Berry train now at this point? Like, is it legit? I mean, listen, you're watching the games more often than me. You're seeing these at bats. You're seeing, WRC plus back at 100. So okay, like we're at average or whatever it might be at this point. But like, is this real from Berry? And could there still be a major league play here? Because to be honest with you, I was fully out. I thought Berry's cooked here, and we're never actually ever going to see him at the Marlins level anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He looks more comfortable in the box. He's walking more. He's striking out less. He's hitting line drives, but I still don't think that power is quite there, which could be deceptive because that AA ball is just, I don't know what it is, just hollow or something, just dies immediately. But I think the power is still lacking. The defense, he looks okay in right field, but the defense still is very much so a question mark.
Definitely. There remains, I mean, it's good to see a degree of progression. So that's encouraging. That encourages me more generally in the organization about, okay, Mac's taking a step forward. Berry's taking a step forward. Okay, things are changing here, and maybe like the Marlins can develop guys again, and we can get them on the right path. But for Berry specifically, he's been selected as a, corner something, whether infield or outfield dude. He hasn't got enough power really for that profile, which is a bit concerning. The defense is concerning also, and so I'm not completely convinced what Berry's future may look like, but we'll wait and see what how things progress. You mentioned two other guys though there, in Martorella and Marcy, the two of the main returns, I guess, for the Luis Arias deal. Let's kind of go back to Arias when that deal was done, and it was done very early, clearly, which I think was one of the main headline grabbers, was just how early that deal came. Obviously, it feels like Dylan Head being the main guy in return there. We haven't seen anything of Dylan Head clearly, but for that deal generally, what was your take on that at that point? Going with let's move Arias now, and on reflection, you may have thought it was a great deal then, but on reflection, has it even improved as a deal as time's gone on? I guess so. Yeah, your reaction to the Arias deal, how you viewed it at the time, equally kind of in hindsight, looking back, how you view it now as well.
Yeah, I kind of viewed Arias as a great, not elite bat, a good, not great player. And then I think he's much more well served as a role player, that fifth guy in the lineup that's just gonna help get everyone else that does the damage in their doubles and stolen bases. And then I didn't like the fit early with him, and then also dumped him. I think Dylan Head's intriguing. I'm not quite sure what's there because we barely got to see him. Marcy's interesting, and then Martorella turning around would be pretty huge. He's starting to get there. He crushed one homer 430 feet, I remember. Just got a hold of one.
Oh baby, that's what we want to hear. It felt like with Martorella in particular that he, the trade happened. He got plugged into the lineup. He started super hot, and then for 1 week, and then since that it was just something happened. It was just a real bad funk for quite a sustained period, and then more recently it feels like Martorella's kind of coming around, and I guess because of all of the trade activity and the number of guys that have been added, we've kind of stopped talking about Martorella at this point. There's just so many prospects knocking around that are new, and everyone's tracking different guys, De Los Santos and Ramirez and Cerna and Norby, kind of forgetting about almost the guys that were returned as part of the Arias deal. Obviously, Dylan Head's out for the rest of the year, but Marcy, Martorella, they're kind of forgotten guys and have slid down in terms of the prospect rankings. But, from your perspective, Martorella particularly, do you see a big league player there in the future?
I'm not entirely sure. I like some of the makeup that's there. There still is some swing and miss, and he gets real under the ball a lot. So he's just popping up to the shortstop all the time.
Right.
Which has started to change. And then his walks are starting to get there as well. So he has a good chance if he can just hit a little bit more.
Makes sense. Let's carry on this conversation. I want to talk about the timeline specifically because, when the Bendix news happened and this whole approach, I was probably a 5/ I was probably a 5 on the Bendix scale. I'm now significantly higher than that. So I want to talk about the timeline specifically about where we think things are trending towards. So, the big league level particularly, because that's what I really care about. I really care about the big league level. And so let's talk about that. But before we do that, firstly, let's let you know about our good friends over at Liquid IV. Rishi may need a bit of Liquid IV tonight. Keep hydrated for this Marlins game, no doubt about it. But when you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. As I've already mentioned, flavors, tons of them, all on the website. You can blast off with the iconic summer flavor of Popsicle Firecracker. It's a festive blend of citrus, fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. My personal favorite is already on there as well. Pina colada. Yes, sir. So no more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to, liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. And this episode is also brought to you by good friends over at SupplyHouse. And you can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? No problem. Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every single time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. Welcome back to Locked On Marlins with me, Peter Pratt, and restocking the house on this one, Friday the 23rd of August. Happy Friday, guys. It's Happy Max Meyer Day. Max Meyer going up against Carl Hendricks, it looks like, against the Cubs. So a 3-game series against these Cubbies should be fun, no doubt. Meyer, Beozo, and it looks like Oller on Sunday, so should be a fun one. Reese, talk to you about this timeline then for Peter Bendix and the Marlins generally. I have to say, when the Arias deal went down, my timeline for the Marlins big league club becoming like relatively competitive would be like 2028 and beyond. I was like, this is going to be like, they're going super young and this is going to be a long-term rebuild. I'm feeling a little bit different after the deadline specifically. I'm feeling like this could be kind of a fun club in 25. Like whether they're a 500 club, I guess it comes down to whether the pitching's any good and who's around, but how are you seeing things in terms of the timeline here for the Marlins at the big league level? Do you think they could be competitive in 25?
I think they'll be fun next year. I don't know about competitive quite yet, but definitely not like in the bottom as like we are this year. But it all depends on how these guys come up. Like if Agustin Ramirez just wants to come up, just tear it up, and then De Los Santos is up, and he's just smoking bombs like Jake Berger right now. Like, they could be looking at something pretty interesting. But I think 2026 would be like the first semblance of what like the actual, hopefully competitive team will look like. We'll see. We'll be through.
You think Sandy Alcantara will be pitching for the Marlins in 26?
I think so.
Oh, that's what I like to hear. Do you think Eddie Cabrera could be the closer by then as well?
I don't know about closer, but I can see him maybe move to the bullpen or just ship him off. Just be like, all right, we tried. Let someone else try. I think there's probably a team that really likes him. I wouldn't be that surprised.
Yeah, me too. Like, you can easily fall in love with Eddie Cabrera. Like, if you watch the right video with the right game and the right start, you're like, oh, this dude's a stud. But if you watch the wrong start, which is basically the wrong inning in a specific start, you quickly fall out of love with Eddie Cabrera and realize what he is. But what did you make of, speaking about, starting pitchers, what did you make of the news that Trevor Rogers, obviously a big, I'll ask you actually in a second what your favorite deal was at the deadline, but Trevor Rogers to the Orioles, made a couple of starts, I think 3-4 starts, and now optioned down to AAA. Looks like, Trevor's obviously had some struggles there. Surprised that Trevor's struggled with the Orioles, or was this probably expected?
I was expecting some regression, but I didn't think it'd be like this. It's pretty rough. I was chalking it up to a Nick Fortes stats, an elite catcher right there. But I think that does play a part. I think that plays a part. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Tanner Scott's struggles happen as well. But,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Weird. It's weird to do it.
Do you see Trevor? Let's say the Orioles make the playoffs. Trevor on the playoff roster for the Orioles?
I could see them doing it. They probably want him to tweak like a thing or two. I don't think it's a full like demotion, like, oh, he don't want you on the team. I think they just want him to work on like specific aspects of his game.
Yeah.
And come back up for the September push.
Yeah, sounds sensible to me. What about, let's go back to the deadline then. The Marlins made so many deals. They've absolutely nailed the farm. They pumped it up now. When you reflect, what was your favorite deal generally, like of all of them? Which one were you like, that was a 10 out of 10 or an A+ from a Bendix perspective.
I mean, it's really close between the Jazz trade and the Scott trade. But I think I'm going to go with Tanner Scott and Brian Hillen, since Tanner Scott's going to be gone next year anyways.
Yeah.
And then I'm obsessed with Robbie Snelling. Like, even when we first got him, like, it was really weird. Like, I was just like, hold on. Like, this is like a thing. And then he's striking out, 40% of batters in Double-A in 3 starts? It's fantastic as a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
We got 2 Thomas Whites now.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, though, right? Like, that's pretty. Like, and I saw it the same. I mean, obviously on the show there's been a lot of discourse around the deadline and the the returns, and when I look back and reflected, like, what was my favorite deal or what was the under the radar deal? I actually was talking about the Tanner Scott deal. It went under the radar, to be honest with you, because there was a lot of talk about this Trevor Rogers deal. It felt like that created a lot of hype and buzz. And the Tanner Scott one, though, I think kind of went a touch under the radar, primarily because, like, Robbie Snelling kind of struggling a little bit. But, surprise, surprise, the Marlins have got him in the system straight away. And all of a sudden, to your point, you got 2 Thomas Whites. And if you've got 2 Thomas Whites, then boy, oh boy, that is, it's a very interesting proposition. Plus Noble Meyer as well. I mean, those 3 combined, both, what are they? They're in and around 20. I'm not even sure Thomas White's 20 yet. I'm not even certain on that.
Nolan, Thomas White's still 19. Just crazy.
Like, that's what I mean. You've got these, like, those 3 guys combined, like, they're all kind of similar ages, similar upside. Like, I mean, one hell of an enticing proposition. Yuri Perez, obviously, like, we'll wait to see what he does in 25. But man, oh man, to your point, by like 2026, I mean, what's to say that all 3 of them couldn't be up with Yuri and maybe Sandy as the anchor of the rotation? I mean, it's a pretty exciting situation. And then that does make you wonder what the future holds for, like, a Jesus Luzardo this offseason, what it means for an Edward Cabrera you've already talked about, et cetera, et cetera. Like, if the Marlins know they've got this kind of next wave coming through, maybe it's time to cash in on Jesus Luzardo, time to cash in on Eddie Cabrera. Where do you sit on those guys being moved?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think it's just so many people are just on the table. It's about getting the value for the guys. Like, if you can get like a 50 kind of prospects, and that might just be enough to tilt it, especially with some throw-ins. It could be an interesting offseason for trades.
Yeah, I'd say so. Maybe it's Robbie Snelling, but who's your current favorite prospect? Like, the guy that you're drawn to the most. It may not be the best prospect or may have the highest future value, whatever it might be, but, like, your current favorite prospect that you're tracking.
That's hard. That's hard. Might be Snelling, but we've already talked about it, so I'll move on to something else. I think it might be Kane Benitez in Abel. And I want to see more of him because they don't televise those games for the most part. But I think he turned 8 as the youngest pitcher to pitch an A-ball flat out. He's been doing it for a couple months. He's got a sub-3 ERA, and his changeup, out of any pitch in, like, tracks in A-ball, thrown at least 100 times, has a second highest whiff percentage on any of them, which is outrageous.
There we go. See, these are like the hidden gems that, like, if you're not, if you're not paying close attention, which probably many of us aren't. I mean, like, following minor league baseball, let's say there's just 4 affiliates, whatever it might be, it's hard enough to follow the Marlins at this point, frankly, because of the amount of roster churn that's going on and everything that's happening. So, like, multiplying that by 3, 4, 5 times, it's hard to do. And so these are like the hidden gems, hidden stories that, unless you closely watch, you don't know what's happening. So, yeah, interesting name to watch out for there. I did see that pop up. Maybe it was probably you tweeting about it on Twitter, to be honest with you, that kind of flagged it to me, that name. So, that makes sense. What about the guys at AAA? I guess you've already mentioned Ramirez, De Los Santos. Are you expecting both those guys to be making an impact for the Marlins in 25 and be actually on the active roster?
Yeah, I expect both of them to be up at some point. I think they'll have a legitimate shot to crack the roster opening day, and then if not, just a little bit after. Especially if the PPI pick is possible, so they can get on like top 100 list starting next year. I think they could just put them there and hope they get a rookie of the year to pick out of it. Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great shout, actually. Like that, like extra incentive for the Marlins. Like if they can, if they promote them early and then they can get that Rookie of the Year vote, then they get the extra pick, right? It's the kind of encouraging that, get them up rather than the service time manipulation. I guess the only challenge to that is we have seen some specific service time manipulation from tonight's starter of Max Meyer. I mean, not that the Marlins have said it's service time manipulation, but it certainly smelt like service time manipulation around Max Meyer. The fact that he was, optioned back down to AAA early in the season after a career start, it smelled a bit funky in that area. And then lo and behold, as soon as he passes the threshold, he's back up to the big leagues. But more generally with Max, what have you made of him since coming back up and since being recalled? It's obviously, been a little bit of more of a struggle for him, I'd say. So what have you made of his return in the back end of 24?
Yeah, as far as his personality, his demeanor on the mound is very impressive. That I like. He's gonna attack hitters, even when his changeup, his four seam aren't working. The slider's still gonna work. That's always gonna be in his back pocket. And then I think the four seam fastball is it's a big struggle pitch. I'd like to see him just ditch it and move on to something else, whether it be a cutter or a two seamer. Just have something new. Just redo it.
Yeah, it's definitely it's the obvious one, right? Like it feels like the hitters are just sitting there on that pitch specifically, and it's just getting hit hard consistently. So something maybe needs to change on that. I think it's a great shout that maybe just cut up something slightly different, like whatever the current situation is. It doesn't look sustainable, not creating any swing and miss at all with that pitch, and it's a big problem for the Max. Let's hit the final ad, and then I did want to talk about Jazz Chisholm Jr. as well, back for the Yankees. I know this isn't Locked On Yankees, but he is back. I want to briefly touch in on the the trade for Jazz and what you made of that at the time as well. Before we do that, let's let you know about our new friends. We love a new sponsor here on Locked On, and our new friends over at TonaI. Yes, sir. And TonaI is the world's smartest and most effective strength training system that helps get you stronger, powered by AI. TonaI learns with every rep, so it can deliver workouts personalized just for you. TonaI learns from your movement and provides suggested weight recommendations for every move with detailed progress reports. They even create personalized program and workout suggestions or recommendations based on your individual goals. It's like having a personal trainer at home with you, as TonaI will optimize every workout just for you. And unlike traditional gym equipment, TonaI uses adaptive digital weight to advance your training techniques. From professional athletes to the mom of three, TonaI is trusted by thousands who have become their strongest. Right now, TonaI is offering our listeners $200 off your TonaI purchase with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Yes, you heard that right. $200 off your TonaI purchase with the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's TonaI.com. And that promo code reminder again is LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off your purchase. Final segment here on Friday's episode of Locked On Marlins. And we have run long, actually, in this one, but we'll keep it rolling. Got to get Reese out of here. He is headed right to the ball game straight after this episode. Absolutely ready to rock and roll for a Max Meyer start for the Marlins against the Cubs. Also, bigger news around, I say bigger news, wider news. That's probably a better way of phrasing it. More politically correct way of phrasing it. Jazz Chisholm Jr. back for the Yankees after the minimum. Shocking scenes. How about Jazz? He goes to the Yankees. He absolutely tears it up. He's on a 80 home run pace in 162 games. He's on a stolen base pace of 60 in 162. And also, he gets hurt, okay, but he's back in the minimum. I've never seen that for Jazz ever before in the Marlins. So what did you make of Jazz's immediate start for the Yankees? Were you surprised? I mean, I don't know where you sit on the Jazz world of love, hate. I don't know, but just your kind of initial reactions of Jazz's production, let's say, at the Yankees, and that he's back after the minimum stint on the IL.
Yeah, it was pretty surprising, honestly. It was weird. My relationship with Jazz is love-hate. I love him, and sometimes he just annoys me. But I do think it was kind of odd to even put him on the IL if it was just something like that brief. He said he felt fine, which doesn't mean anything with Jazz. But I think it is kind of weird just to kind kind of put him to the wayside instead of just maybe using him in like a smaller role for a little bit and having him for more games, which would probably help them out a lot. But they're the Yankees, so who cares?
Yeah. What's for you? I mean, there's a lot of Marlins fans, I'd say, that have a love-hate relationship with Jazz, or did have when he was obviously a Marlins player. What was your main frustration with Jazz, like as a fan? Like where did the hate aspect sit? What was frustrating for you with him specifically?
It was his approach. He just looked like unfocused sometimes, and like one pitch and didn't go well for him mentally, and then he was just out for that bat. And he was just, I'm just gonna swing the next 2 pitches. Just go sit down. I'm like, all right, dude, like, come on.
He does. You do see that with Jazz. Like he is impacted specifically, particularly if there's like a dodgy call, like or something doesn't quite go his way. It does feel like it could impact him mentally, and the rest of the at bat is completely impacted by that. And it's just wild hacks. Definitely seen that from him. But in terms of moving on from Jazz, 2.5 years of control for him, was the Marlins' best hitter at the time when they moved him. But was Bendix right to move him at that time, considering he'd been healthy all the year? And that's the main question with Jazz was, can he stay healthy? And at that point, you move him. Was he at peak value at that point, or right to move him?
Yeah, I think ultimately it is where his peak value would be. There could be a chance he wanted to, or not want to, but he just does perform better next year, and then they could have traded him for potentially more. But I don't know if we'd really get more than Augustine Ramirez and Jared Serna right now. They look fantastic. Then I know he wants to go out there, make a good name, good face out there, and go get his bag, which he should. So if we're not going to be able to re-sign him 41, so might as well trade him for what you can.
Yeah, no doubt. Final one, because we're out of time, but we haven't spoken about him at all. He's probably my favorite prospect now in the Marlins system, the one I'm following most closely, I would say, in Jared Serna. I don't know. I could just see Jose Altuve level production coming out of Jared Serna, and so I'm going to be very closely following him. But what do you make of Serna? Obviously, he's been scorching. This is what I wanted. Like, I think when you make some of these deals, like for Bendix as well, and the optics, it's great if you get some guys in and they just hit the ground running. And he's certainly done that, Serna, in Double-A. He's obviously just, every day he's hitting a double, if not multiple doubles. What has been your early impressions of him, and how highly do you rate him for the future here for the Marlins?
Yeah, I think it didn't take long for me to start falling in love with him as a player. Like, it's very just through the ball, like old school swing, where we're just gonna hit it flat. We're gonna hit these line drives, and hits him so hard. And he's really fast. So he's just hitting all these doubles, pull side, and just boom, easy double. Never has his helmet on too. It's really fun. He gets to show that nice hair. The second he turns face, oh, boom, out. He's in there.
I've seen that. You've been tweeting about that as well. I think there's a few people tweeting about that now. As soon as anything mentioned with Serna, any kind of base hit, it's always helmet's gone, hair's out. It's like it's just the standards. We need like a helmet tracker, a 40-40 helmet tracker. I don't know. We need something going on with Serna to track that progress. But fun prospect. I mean, for me personally, I find it hard to, move on from Jazz just because of how much I enjoyed watching him. And, it is what it is. But, also, the chapter has ended there with Jazz and the Marlins at this point. And so you need to, embrace what the future holds. And that's kind of, I'm in that curve now of like, okay, 24 is in the books and finally this season's cooked. But actually Bendix really knows what he's doing. Like he really does. And I think that's where I'm at, is like me, wider Marlins fans, I think we know we've got someone running the show that really knows what they're doing. And it may come to fruition sooner than maybe I'd anticipated a few months back. And I think that's also helped me, because those long rebuilds are tough for the fans, where it's uncompetitive at the big league level for like a long stretch. It's a really tough sell to the fan base. And, uncompetitive sports and baseball is a tough watch, no doubt. But it feels to me like this is going to be a fun group in 25. Wins and losses wise for 25, just final question, we'll get out of here. Wins and losses, I mean, clearly there's moves to be made. Who knows what the roster looks like? Who knows who's pitching? But, do you see this being a 70-win club in 25, an 80-win club? Like, where do you kind of set the watermark at this point?
Yeah, I think the goal should be at least 70 and like play fun baseball. We're maybe not close it out. It might be like kind of competitive. See how that deadline goes. That'll probably change a lot pre and post deadline teams. But I think it could get really interesting. It'll be a fun team. The offense should be way better than we've had the last handful of years.
Yeah, agreed. I think so. I think the offense is going to be fun to see and to track along. I think it's going to come down to the pitching like it did in 23. They pitched well. They were competitive. And I think the offense could actually take a step forward in general. So I'm with you. We're out of time. It's Friday. It's time for beers. You know the drill. Reese has got to go and get to the game. So, Reese, appreciate you hopping on Locked On Marlins. Your debut appearance. Make sure you're following him on Twitter, of course. Everyone probably is already that listens to this show, but exiled_axe. I almost said ace, but axe. Exiled_axe for the Twitter handle. Hit him up there as well. Guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. We're going to be back on Monday recapping a Cubs series in which I hope that we see a much improved performance from Max Meyer. The last couple of starts have been uninspiring, and I need to see Max Meyer getting back to Braves early season form. I want to see Beente Beozo continue doing what he's doing, and I continue to see Connor Norby absolutely raking. Look forward to seeing you on Monday.